In this video, we'll be looking at section 1.5.1, and we will be factoring the greatest common factor, also known as the GCF. And our central question will be, how do I factor out the greatest common factor? So factoring is really the inverse or opposite of distributing. So we're just going backwards from our distributive property. So, for example, we will go negative 4a squared b minus 8ab squared plus 2ab. So if it's the opposite of distributing, we're going to be trying to use a lot of dividing to kind of, as I like to say, pull things out. So my question that I ask myself is, what is common to each term? What can be divided out of each coefficient? So by answering these two questions, we can factor out. So if I look at all three of these terms, well, I can factor out a 2. I can divide each term by 2 or negative 2. So I can divide each term by 2 or negative 2. And then I can also, what letter do they all have in common? What variable do they all have in common? Well, they all have an a, and they all have one a. So the most I can factor out is 1a. And they all have, at the minimum, one b. So the most I can factor out is one of those b's. So how we'll write this is, I'm going to factor out my 2. And I put that on the outside of my parentheses. And we said we can factor out the 2, one of the a's, because that's the least amount they all have, and then we could factor out one of the b's. Now I'm just either subtracting my exponent by 1 or dividing my coefficient by this number. So negative 4 divided by 2 would be negative 2. I took one a away from a squared, so I still have an a left. I factored this b out, so there's no more b. Now we can move on to our next term. So negative 8 divided by 2 will be negative 4. I took the 1a out. I've already factored that out, so that a is now gone. This a right here is gone. And then I can factor out, so I'm factoring out the b from the b squared, so that leaves me with 1b left. Now plus, and I'll do my dividing of coefficients. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then I factored an a out, so that a is gone. And I factored the b out, so that b is gone, so I'm left with just 1. And that's factoring. So this is going to be called factoring out a term. And then we have another idea where we factor out an expression. So my example will be x minus 2 squared plus x plus 4 times x minus 2. And then the question we're asking ourselves is, what expression is common to both terms? So I'm treating this expression as a term and then this expression as a term. When I look at this, they both have an x minus 2, so I can factor an x minus 2 out. So I have an x minus 2 out front, and then parentheses. And now if I took one of these x minus 2's away, there's two x minus 2's, I'm taking one away, it's going to leave me with an x minus 2. Plus, and if I took this x minus 2 away, I'd be left with an x plus 4. Then we close our big parentheses, and now we have factored out an x minus 2. So if I thought about distributing it, oops, sorry, I didn't show that. So what happened was I factored out an x minus 2 from my first term, and then I factored out an x minus 2 from my second term, and this is what was left. So when I took an x minus 2 away from this first term, I was left with an x minus 2. And then when I took an x minus 2 away from my second term, I was left with x plus 4. That's what that looks like. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day.